All right, we're about ready to start here. It's August 27, 2018. You can hear the music in the background as we're ready to produce Money Matters with Greg here on the 103.1 FM WVLP. Show about money, and certainly we're going to talk about markets initially, some of the earnings. We're going to talk about a rare Ferrari that was just sold for a record, and then talk about the tasting rooms for the millennial era over in Sonoma and Napa. Try to help you out with some cost-friendly places if you're a wine drinker. All right, good morning. Happy August 27, 2018. I'm Greg Farrell, and this show is Money Matters with Greg. It's a show about money. We try to bring some value to you and your family and give you some tips on how to save some money, build some money, grow, create money, protect and preserve that money, distribute money during your lifetime, and distribute money during death. Those are the four quadrants of wealth management that we see in our world with our high net worth individuals that we work with. I'm CEO and president of Farrell Wealth. It's a wealth management firm here locally in Valparaiso, and we also help clients all over the nation. But registered advisor that started this show really to just sort of educate and add some financial literacy to you and yours. You can find us on Twitter at Farrell Wealth. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcasts as well. We have podcasts mainly on iTunes through Apple, and certainly find us there. We have our 104th episode or something like that just went up last week. And we will make sure that this episode gets up as well, so you can listen to it if there's something you want to take from it and save or take notes or whatever it might be. That we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the market, finishing up with earnings season. We've been contributing and concentrating most of the shows we've had on the markets and what's going on with the overall market as we go throughout this year. It's been a wild ride. It's been pretty crazy. Pretty crazy, volatile 2018, without a doubt. So we've been talking much about that. I'm going to talk about this rare Ferrari, this 250 GTO that sold for $48.4 million at auction. It's a record. I wanted to talk about that, and then also talk about some of the tasting rooms that are out in Napa and Sonoma that you see coming about here in regards to really attracting a millennial era sort of a sprout in Napa, excuse the pun. And I wanted to talk about some of the cost-conscious places you can go to and some of the places you can get a deal. In Sonoma, if you're a wine drinker, like myself, I'm a consumer, not a collector, as I like to say. So I always like to be able to bring some of the things that I'm seeing out there in the wine world to the audience. So that being said, really just diving in here in the earnings season. It has been another outstanding earnings season by many, many measures. The second quarter numbers really were strong, even without the boost of the new tax law. And certainly guidance has been generally positive, as many of these companies have their earnings calls and conference calls. They always talk about, okay, how did we do in this last quarter, but then ultimately, what do we see in the future? And for the most part, guidance has been generally positive, and even though the trade policy uncertainty has, without a doubt, been affecting the guidance, forward guidance conversations as far as tariffs and trade policy, as many of these CEOs are on these calls, they have to negotiate, or they have to navigate through what they really don't even know, and making sure that they are cognizant of the fact that they are giving correct guidance and not necessarily underestimating or overestimating, and that's what the analysts really want to see. But you have 15 index constituents left to report. That's it out of the S&P 500, and overall earnings have risen 25% year over year. This nearly matches the 26% growth rate from the quarter before. And even without the boost from the tax cuts, which is estimated at 6 to 7%, Earnings growth came in still at an outstanding 18 to 19%. So really looking at an outstanding second quarter earnings season, and really want to highlight a few takeaways as we kind of move throughout this show. We're just really going to talk about the next few shows, some of those takeaways you can be looking for. But some of the most recent news is the trade tensions have eased. Positive trade headlines have provided a lift to global stocks. You saw today there was a good news about NAFTA in regards to Mexico. The market's up today based on a suggestion of a NAFTA deal. It looks like there has been a deal in pencil. Mexico really wants a trilateral agreement and to include Canada, but that has not had any sort of legs so far. We will see what happens with that as far as negotiating with Canada and making it a trilateral deal, and see how that goes. But it's big news today on the NAFTA deal between the U.S. and Mexico. That certainly happened this morning. And then also the Chinese stocks surged for the second straight day after China's central bank hinted that Friday it would take steps to support the yuan in the moves that could be seen as sort of a concession and ease of the U.S.-China future trade negotiations. So that was really interesting too. And then finally, the S&P finally closed at an all-time high on Friday for the first time since late January. We've seen many highs, many signs that really suggest that this would eventually happen. Unfortunately, it did. Now that logical question is what happens next. And going back to 1950, we found that there were 18 other times that the S&P 500 went at least 6 months or more without a new high. And the good news is the index was higher a year later, 17 of those times. So it's a pretty good batting average if you're into baseball, for sure. So looking at those potentially bullish phenomenons is something we will keeping track of and making sure that you're aware of in regards to your investment philosophy, investment strategy. The last thing that we're certainly going through is the Jackson Hole post-mortem. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell delivered a speech on Friday at the Economic Policy Symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. They do this every year, and it's by far one of the biggest news events in regards to the Fed and the Federal Reserve. Powell's comments really leaned slightly dovish as he signaled flexibility in future monetary policy decisions. And that's very, very important to everyone to understand that, look, the dissection of the words that come about in that policy are very, very important. So you really want to be able to make sure that you're cognizant of that, and that's what the market has liked. They like the flexibility and slightly dovish comments. So we're going to analyze this sort of pragmatic approach to monetary policy in the current environment, and just sort of keep track of it overall, making sure you know about it as we move along. This week, speaking of this week, investors get updates on consumer confidence and inflation in the U.S., the Eurozone, among other countries. Also, the second revision to second quarter U.S. gross domestic product comes Thursday. The consensus on Bloomberg is 4.0, so we'll see if that comes in. And that's also followed by U.S. consumer income and spending data on Thursday. Finally, expect traders to keep an eye on that personal consumption expenditures index. That's a really key inflation metric that sort of hovers over the Fed's target range. And then we'll be tracking all of these and other important events throughout this week. So just be aware. I wanted to also mention, and we talked about it on the last show, we have a mid-year outlook that we use. It's on our website. You can go to farrellwealth.com. You can email me at greg@farrellwealth. I'd be happy to send it to you. It's basically an 18-page report on where we are now, where we look like we're going, and some of the things that we might be doing here in the near future in regards to the investments, or looking towards. I certainly want to make sure everyone is following a prudent, disciplined investment strategy, making sure that you have what's called an investment policy statement, which would be a 4 or 5 page report that you can put together where you follow that strategy and make sure you stick to your guns. Whether you're working with an advisor, or whether you're working with a tax accountant, or anyone in regards to your team, you should always have what's called an IPS, an investment policy statement. It sort of holds everyone accountable and also keeps you accountable as well if you're doing your own investments, making sure you're investing wisely and not shooting at the hip and giving it a shot on some of these things, but having a very prudent and disciplined strategy is the way you ultimately gain more wealth, grow more wealth, and then ultimately down the line protect more wealth. So that is the market update here for August 27, 2018. Wanted to mention we're on Facebook as well. You can go to our Farrell Wealth Facebook page. I have been working on a number of things too to add more content and bring more information to everyone. I've just recently installed a green screen, and we're going to start doing some updates, daily market updates. You can find those on our website and also on the Facebook page to start. Once I get the few through compliance and see how we're doing in regards to that, they'll be coming to you. So far, so good. I'm really happy with how they've turned out, and they're only getting better. I'm certainly practicing as well, trying to get better at my what I'm doing and making sure I'm not stuttering and miserable host. So I want to make sure that you bring as much information to everybody in a very concise and clear way, something you can view on your phones, something you can take with you in regards to mobile, or follow along in the mornings, getting ready for work or whatever it might be. Sort of give you that update, and really looking forward to being able to add more to that. So coming along here, we're also going to do a number of interviews and sort of do off-site interviews. So if you're interested in being a part of this show and want to talk about how you can help the audience save some money, please contact me, greg@farrellwealth.com. I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to have you on the show to talk about money. So whatever it might be, we've had guests on from real estate to mortgages to how to buy or sell a car to estate planning attorneys, and you name it. We were trying to add more and more. I have a number of people coming on in regards to healthcare. We're going to talk much more about that as we go through towards the end of the year. Experts in their fields, and really bring them to you. I started the show as I'm very privy to some phenomenal conversations with people, very intelligent people with some much bigger brains than myself. So I like to be able to bring those conversations to you. And now that I have the mobile set up to be able to do this, I'm even more excited to be able to bring it to you, and then ultimately put those snippets in the show. And Greg Kovac is going to help me in regards to all of that as far as the engineer. We'll get going and adding more and more as we move along. So please reach out to us with ideas, and also if you want to be a guest on the show, I'd love to hear from you. So that being said, I want to talk about this rare Ferrari 250 GTO for all of those that are car enthusiasts. Look, a red 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO sold for $48.4 million on Saturday in California, and that's the most ever paid for a classic car at auction. Now, I'm always about recognizing things that might be bubblish in regards to the world and as far as the markets. So this would definitely justify as that, a $48.4 million Ferrari. I guess there were only 33 of them made. This is the third that was made. But this vehicle was offered by Sotheby's in Monterey, and this was estimated to fetch between 45 and 60 million. So it definitely on the low side of that valuation, but the highest valuation for a vintage auto auction ever, and it smashed the previous record of 38.1 million paid for a 1963 model of the same car in 2014. The seller was Greg Witten. He's chairman of Numerix Software, and he was an early Microsoft employee. He purchased it in 2000. Sotheby's declined to say how much he bought it for, but said the market price for such Ferraris at the time was about 10 million. Ferrari built about 36 examples. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was 36 examples of the model from 1953 to 1964. And these elegant race cars have really generated a highest price among all vintage automobiles in recent years. A 1963 version sold for $70 million in a private transaction earlier this year, according to Sotheby's. The record price includes the premiums, the buyer's premium based on the hammer price of $44 million, calculated at just a mere 12%. So Sotheby's certainly did pretty well on the first 250,000 and 10% on the remainder. So not a bad day for Sotheby's as an auction house, and not a bad day for if you're a collector or Mr. Witten who sold it. So not a bad day at all. I just wanted to be able to bring that up as I just find things like this interesting, and also make sure you're bringing them up just because with excess, when you start getting into what we always talk about here as far as the overs, you have overspending, over borrowing, and one of these things would be overconfidence, and that's probably a record multi-million dollar auction for a car is probably one of those, or two of those, I would say. But that's what we always look for in regards to things that might change your investment strategy, might make you a little nervous, might make you raise a little bit more cash than you normally would. Those are three things that we always look at as the over-index. None of those have touched our numbers in regards to what we see and that are troubling, but I always like to be able to bring things up that if you are a car enthusiast, I'm sure, and if you had a cool 48.4 million laying around in your bank account, it's a wonderful opportunity, I'm sure, but it also seems like a lot of money to be paying for a pretty special car, but it is what it is. So just be aware out there. That's why I bring it up. The other thing too, I don't want to really talk about these tasting rooms that are going on in Sonoma and Napa. And by the way, that was from Bloomberg.com. That is an article that is on their website. You can find it very easily. It is written by Frederick Balfour. It was written on August 26, 2018 at 2:20 a.m. So he was up, at least it was posted that in the morning. And you can find it on their website, Bloomberg.com. Also on Bloomberg.com, I found this article I wanted to bring up to everyone. It is by Ellen McCoy. It was just written here today, and it's really about the past decade, about the wineries that have begun to rethink the whole tasting experience that is out in Sonoma and California. And they're really investing in upscale settings, and the prices to match. If your image of a winery tasting room in Sonoma or Napa is this long bar dotted with open bottles and the black plastic spit buckets that no one uses anyway, you're definitely out of date. These new tasting rooms are opening at twice the rate of the new wineries, and a trend that isn't always welcomed by local residents who complain about traffic all the time. But millennial hotspot Scribe, and it's a picturesque hacienda winery in Sonoma that's opened in 2007, has really helped shift this paradigm. And some other remote wineries began opting for these swanky saloon-style wine bars in more of an urban setting, away from the vineyard. So you have Outland, it's in downtown Napa, and that's a collaboration among three tiny producers, Farella, Poe, and Forlorn Hope. And a few blocks away in that tasting room, you can go to Blackbird, which dubs River House by the Bespoke Collection. And then charming spots really from the likes of Acumen, Brown Estate, Mark Harold are also nearby. So the question is why? Why are they doing these things? And look, the direct selling to consumers is essential for small and medium-sized wineries, and it's a great way for you to be able to get a wine delivered to your doorstep instead of having to and cutting out the middlemen, if you like, as far as joining their clubs. And it's really become a way to cement these customer relationships for wineries. So they've been all about the experience. And this really persuades you to join their wine clubs and then keep buying their brands, because you find a brand you really like, and you just sort of stick with that brand, and then in order to be able to get that brand at a discounted price, you join their club, and then they deliver to you, once a month, once every 3 months, 6 months, whatever you like. So Bloomberg has put together this, basically, I think it's a top 5 on top 6. So what the author has done is really, Ellen McCoy has put this, 6 wineries of new, different tasting rooms that are very cool. And for most, reservations are necessary, but really recommend that if you are planning a trip out there, these might be worth the money. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is try to help you with your money. The first one is Silver Oak, Alexander Valley. I have been here. It is a phenomenal winery. It is probably one of my favorite wineries out there. In regards to price, you get a great glass of wine for the price. Silver Oak obviously is phenomenal and very expensive wine. They're upwards of everywhere from $50 to $100 to well over a couple $1,000 as far as bottles. But they're they're a very popular Napa producer, and these wines that they develop are really plush, and they're collectible Cabernets. LeBron James, Oprah are both huge fans, and this really opened these unlimited sustainable winery and tasting room in Alexander Valley Vineyard in Sonoma. And in July, it was awarded the LEED LEED Platinum certification with all the right green stuff that implies, really clean wine. So these have zero toxic materials. They have solar panels, pure filtered air, salvaged redwood siding from the old 1930s wine tanks. They've wrapped in this sleeky barn-style building, and floor-to-ceiling windows that frame this panoramic views of 75 acres of Cabernet vines. And the tour includes a look at the $1 million membrane bioreactor that filters 100% of the water, and they're 4,700 gallons a day from the cellar, as well as a screen showing how much water has been used that day. Tastings feature the latest vintage of Silver Oak's Napa and Sonoma Cabernets, and the cost can be everywhere from $30 to $300. There is a best tasting option that's recommended, and that's the 90-minute food and wine pairing with tour, and it includes 4 wines at $90. So that's quite a deal, and that's why I bring it up there for Silver Oak. Next would be Promontory. It's Napa wineries really make the most expensive Cabernets, such as Screaming Eagle and Harlan Estate, but most of those don't have tasting rooms. So it's a big deal that Bill Harlan's newest venture in Promontory is now opening its doors to tasters. This is a stunning 840-acre estate in the foothills of Mount Veeder, and is run by his son Will, who wants to savor the atmosphere and this intense, smoky, mineral Cabernet that they make there. And so if you're a Cabernet fan, it's a wonderful way to be able to taste, and you've really never had the chance to be able to do it. He's really hoping that you're going to bond to Promontory for life. And so it's a stone, glass, steel winery, which really opened last year, and exhibits this sort of cool, chic aesthetic in an untamed landscape with 80 acres of vines. Private tastings and current library vintage take place in small, serene, sort of these Japanese-influenced rooms with windows that really overlook these gorgeous vistas. So highly recommend it. Some of their wines cost as much as $700 a bottle, so being able to get a taste for something reasonable. Their cost is $200. The tasting fee is deducted from any purchase, however, so if you do feel like stepping up and buying an expensive bottle of wine, they will deduct that. That's nice. The next, as we sort of run through these, Quintessa is another. As more wineries go high design, ditto for the tasting rooms. Cabernet producer Quintessa is a 280-acre estate in Rutherford, and they've really created a 250 square foot wood and glass tasting pavilions set in the prime vineyard spots in right outside of Dragon's Hill. And these are really design award-winning spaces that seem like the perfect minimalist structure for mindful yoga at dawn, but really, you know, that sort of thing. But they're definitely just as soothing at a wine tasting. So you can take a walk through the winery and the caves that are there as well. The cost there is $75 to $125. So highly recommend that. And then that best tasting option for Quintessa is the quintessentially Quintessa. It's 90 minutes and it's $125. The next, as we wind into the final 5 minutes of the show or so, you have Costa Brown. It's Kosta Brown, and they do a lot of Pinots. Almost all of its 14 bottles go to the 20,000 plus devotees on the mailing list, and the waiting list for this is very, very long. They just opened a gallery, what they call a gallery. It's a tasting lounge that they unveiled on August 9th, which even new waitlist members can reserve one or twice a day tasting slots to try to buy the wines. Through a large glass window in the lounge, you can really look down on the minimalist barrel room to watch cellar workers as you taste or settle on long great wine. They have $75 for active members and $125 for waitlisters as far as the cost goes. And basically the tasting options are wide open. Best bet for waitlisters is the 10 a.m. Monday to Thursday slot. So great recommendation there. The last two here is Prisoner Wine Company. And in October, the cult label Prisoner Wine Company will open its first ever tasting room designed as a day-long destination in Napa called the Makery. And this is brought by Constellation Brands and bought by Constellation Brands in 2016 for $285 million. The brand will offer wine tastings, but it also offer guests a chance to kind of hang out in this individual studio with local artisans and residents, from soap makers to potters, and take classes with them. It's really a culinary center that will be on the site as well. Expect live music, blending seminars, an outdoor wood fire oven, and much, much more. So the Prisoner is a really complex red blend, and they do a phenomenal job. They really have 10 wines. Don't miss the taste of the new blend, Derange, which looks phenomenal. I certainly hope to be able to partake in that. And the cost is not yet decided, but that's coming about in October. And the final one is Ashes and Diamonds, and this is just a really cool white building, and they have portal windows with floating zigzag roofs, and this is just a very different modern-esque type looking winery. Winery opened in September 2017. It's a mid-20th century Los Angeles vibe, without a doubt. The founder, Kashi Khalida, is a formal exec with Capitol Records and MTV, and wants to make this estate just north of the city of Napa as sort of a cultural hub with regular winemaker conversations. He's enlisted many well-known Napa winemakers who produce one or more 8 wines overall. So there are many wine lists. Many New York restaurants like Modern, Nomad, and 11 Madison Park all have their wines on the list. Tasting places really include a bright outdoor patio, and don't miss the wood-fired chicken, and also don't miss the Red Hen Cabernet as well. The cost for that is $40 to $250, and the best tasting option is the A&D wines plus food is $95. So you can get some great food as well as some great wines there. That is the tasting rooms for millennial era, sort of sprouting up in Napa and Sonoma. Wanted to give you sort of a guide here. If you're going or looking to intend to get out to Sonoma or Napa, highly recommend you check out one or all 6, if possible, of some of the tasting rooms there that are sprouting up. It's really a great way to be able to get some wines you've never heard of, and now many of the wines that have never been available. So I hope that was some sort of help to you. We talked about a rare Ferrari 250 GTO that could certainly look like a top in the market as far as people spending that kind of money. Then we talked about the daily market and what's going on for the week. So that's their show, Money Matters with Greg. I'm Greg Farrell, CEO and President of Farrell Wealth. This is a show about money for you and helping you with your money. Hopefully we were a help today, and looking forward to next week as well as we move into September. Can't believe it's already the end of the last week of the summer. And want to be able to make sure that we recognize the service and certainly the career of Senator John McCain on this show. What a wonderful American he was, and unfortunately we lost him over the weekend, and I want to dedicate this show to him and what he's done in regards to America, and what a patriot. So with that being said, congratulations to all of you out there for listening, and hopefully we're able to gather something, invest wisely, and keep this market moving as we keep on trying to create wealth, protect wealth, distribute wealth during life, distribute wealth after death, and certainly move on throughout the week. I want to wish everybody well and have a fantastic, healthy, and profitable week. See you next week. See ya.